Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Liz Fenton and I'm here with Lisa Steinke. She's my best friend and co-author of 7 novels, including the forthcoming How to Save a Life, which releases on July 14th. And it's a heart-pounding love story with a Groundhog Day twist. So we're so excited to have Sarah Ackerman here with us today. And Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about Warwick's?
Okay, well, first of all, welcome Sarah to Warwick's virtual event. Hopefully one of these days you can get over here to the mainland and we'll have a real event for you at the store.
I would love that.
And we couldn't do this without Liz and Lisa. You guys and these Couchsurfing things are just absolutely fantastic. And for the ladies who are listening who live in San Diego, we're actually going to do a live event with Liz and Lisa on the 15th of July. There's tickets on our website and their website. So you might want to come join us for that. So anyways, a little bit about Warwick's. We are in La Jolla, San Diego, California. For those that are not local, I see lots of names and people who come and join us every week. So I won't go too much on this, but for those of you that are new to us, what I like to say is however you can get a book, you can get it from Warwick's. We are actually open, so you can come and safe distance, masks, 6-foot distancing. You can come and browse with us. You can order online, you can call us, we'll ship it, you can pick it up. So think of Warwick's when you need a book. So with that, off to you, ladies.
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, we're so excited to have Sarah with us today. She's the USA Today bestselling author of Lieutenant's Nurse, Island of Sweet Pies and Soldiers, and Red Sky Over Hawaii, which published on June 9th. Born and raised in Hawaii, she studied journalism and earned graduate degrees in psychology and Chinese medicine. She blames Hawaii for her addiction to writing and sees no end to its untapped stories. When she's not writing or teaching, you'll find her in the mountains or in the ocean. She currently lives on the Big Island with her boyfriend and a house full of bossy animals. Well, I certainly can relate to the bossy animal part, but welcome, Sarah. I'm gonna turn you over to Lisa and you'll be in good hands.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Sarah. We're so excited to talk to you today. Congratulations also on the recent publication of your book, Red Sky Over Hawaii. We're very happy for you.
Oh, thank you. It's always exciting.
Yeah. Well, Noelle Salazar, USA Today bestselling author of The Flight Girls, had this to say about your book. A beautiful and thoughtful novel that pays tribute to the lore of the islands, their people, and those who stand up for the ones who cannot. Can you give us a little bit about what Red Sky Over Hawaii is about?
Okay, so this book is a World War II historical fiction set on the Big Island, as my others are also World War II Hawaii stories. This one was based around a hideaway house that I learned about that was built at the volcano when everybody here thought that there was going to be an invasion. So like Pearl Harbor happened. They thought that for sure the Japanese were going to come back to invade. So there was a hideaway house built up there. So this story is kind of a group of unlikely characters that end up at this hideaway house. And there's 2 German girls, there's a Japanese fisherman and his son, and a few other people that are, you know, they're kind of, they're up there thrust together. And there's also a detainment camp nearby with soldiers there. So some of them don't really want to be found or noticed. And so it's kind of circles around that whole theme.
What comes first for you when you write a book, and maybe they're different, but the idea or the characters?
Usually always the idea. I have the idea that usually starts, you know, maybe I've been thinking about it for years as just something like, oh, I'd love to write a story. But the characters start to evolve as I'm writing. So I usually know my main character or the couple main characters, but the other ones really don't show up until I'm writing. So that's kind of fun.
Right. It's always so interesting to hear how different authors do it, because some will just see a character will pop in their head and then they'll build a story around that. What is your writing process like? Like, where do you begin and where do you end?
Mm-hmm. Well, I usually start with just daydream. I do a lot of daydreaming beforehand, kind of just seeing different story threads, following them where they might lead. And then once I have an idea, I'll start doing research. And a lot of times in that research, I'll get more ideas. That's happened with all my books. You know, it's like you take one thread and then it leads you down another path. And so I'll do that. And then I'll start writing. I'll do a draft. It usually takes me about maybe 4 to 6 months. Although this last one that I just finished my 4th manuscript, and it took me 9 months because of the pandemic. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate in the beginning. And then after
That's
the
still
draft,
pretty short.
Yeah.
That's still good.
That's for the draft though. The draft
Right.
still needs a ton of work. And then I'll read it, do a quick edit, send it to the agent who also is a great editor. And then after that, we send it to my editor who works her magic on it.
I love that. How are you when your editor works magic? Are you good with taking notes or?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I always know that it's going to be so much better after I get it back from her.
Yeah,
it's shocking. I think in the beginning, you get this 10-page letter.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Usually there's 1 or 2, I feel like, things in there that are kind of major, you know, and you think, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Right. We're the same way. And then we have to walk away for several days and process, and then come back to it. And they're always right though. And it's always better afterward. It's just such a big task after you've written it. You just kind of want to be done. And then you got to go back in again. Your cover, you have a copy of your book there, right? Can you hold it up? I love it. And your covers all kind of, you know, they're very well branded. I think when someone goes into a bookstore, they're going to know it's your book. What is your part in the design process of your covers?
I usually send them. So far I've sent them pictures of covers that I like. So I'll just send them a handful of book covers I like. And then when I get the draft or the sample, I will give them some feedback. Oftentimes it's, well, the last one with this one, it was they had the mountain on the wrong island. And so this one is very much a volcano, you know, it's a pyramid shaped volcano. And it's really different than the other islands. And so it was pretty important to me that they get that right. And so that was really the mainstay I have had on it. I also wanted them to have like a border of some kind, make it a little fancier. And so they did, they listened to me on that. But in general, it's not too much up to me, the cover.
Gotcha. Well, it came out very well. Can you show us one more time? I'm sorry, I don't have my copy in front of me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think we have some questions from the chat.
We sure do. I forgot to give you the signal. This is my
it's okay.
signal.
I see below.
Fine. I
can read.
Whatever. Okay, so Sharon is asking, I would like to hear more about the inclusion of animals in your stories. What was the inspiration for Sailor?
Okay, that was a story that I love to tell because I followed Sailor on Instagram. And all my books have animals. I love animals. I include them in all my books. The first one had a lion. The Marines that were living here in Hawaii had a lion with them. And so that was fun to write about. But with Sailor, I had a Great Dane when I was growing up. So I love Great Danes. And she was just so cute and adorable. And so I fell in love with her on Instagram. And I asked her owner, I said, would it be okay if I use Sailor's name in my book and kind of, you know, model this character after her? So, because the little girl, the 2 German girls' parents are taken away. And so they're grieving, they're sad, they're scared. And they have this dog. And so Sailor was the inspiration for that. But unfortunately, she died during the writing of the book. And so I was just heartbroken, obviously, for her family. But I was, you know, I said, are you okay with me keeping her name and writing? And they said yes. And so that's the inspiration for that.
Wow. That's, wow. Okay, so Christine has a question. What attracts you to World War II?
Well, I grew up in Hawaii, and if you are my age or around my age or older, either your parents or your grandparents that were here, pretty much their whole focus was World War II. You know, that was their defining moment in life. My grandparents were here during the war, and my grandfather was the principal here on the Big Island at the school nearby to where the Camp Tarawa was, where there was 50,000 something Marines. And so I grew up on the stories, and it was just, there's so many stories here in Hawaii because so many things happened that it just, I guess I felt like I was the one that could tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hand it back to you, Lisa. There is one more question, but I know you've got some interesting questions too, and then we'll come back and ask Maria, we'll get to yours in just a little bit.
I see that question. It's a good question, but if we can wait just a minute on it. I also wanted to ask you about the title. I'm just always curious about this. Was that always the title?
That was not always the title. I always have a really hard time with titles. First of all, myself. And then with all of my books, there's been a lot of back and forth with titles. And this one was no different. So this original, I was calling this The Hiding Season, but I knew that it might change. And I'm not ever really stuck on mine, but I was calling it The Hiding Season. But I also kind of always wanted a book. I thought having Hawaii in the title would be nice because a lot of people really love Hawaii. And so my publisher, though, they wanted to call it The Hawaii Hideaway, and which I thought I was okay with. You know, I wasn't in love with it, but I was okay with it. And then they were going to change it to something else, which I was not okay with. I don't even remember what it was. And then my editor said, well, how about this? And I thought, you know, that I like it because it's set at the volcano. And if you've ever been to the volcano, you know that when it's erupting, there's the glow at night. And also Pearl Harbor, the red sky at night. So I feel like it has the double meaning there, which worked out.
I love the title, and it was The Hiding Season, the one. That's a great title, but to me that's more like suspense or like it has a thriller-ish feel. I feel like your title, like I instantly knew it was probably historical fiction, like with the title that you have.
Yeah, I did have to convince them about having the place in the title. And then it turned out not that hard because there's so many other books, you know, The Light Over London or The Paris this or The German that. And I thought, well, why not the Hawaii, you know? And so it worked out well, and I'm happy with it.
I think that was smart to put Hawaii in the title.
Yeah.
And I like the title too. I mean, I think it fits very well.
Thank you.
Can we talk about your research process for Red Sky? What goes into it? Is that where you start before you start writing, or do you write and then add that in?
For this particular book, I think with each World War II Hawaii story, it's gotten a little bit easier just because especially with the Lieutenant's Nurse, I really had to nail down the timeline for Pearl Harbor. There's so many things that happened in the whole war here. So, and I had a couple really amazing big fat books on it, but there wasn't a lot about the volcano during the war because it's a remote part of the Big Island.
I'm going to pull up some of your, sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up some of your, if I can move this, because now I have the full screen. I'm going to pull this up so you can speak to it during this.
Yeah. And so first of all, the volcano is one of my favorite places in the world. It's just, there's something so magical. There's just this, it's new earth forming, right? It's a volcano, and it's misty, it's cool, it's beautiful. There's lava fields, there's steam vents. And so this is looking out at the main crater, Halemaumau crater, from the volcano house. What happened was, originally I was up here hiking one day a couple years back, and I like to go off the back roads, and I found this really cool old house, and it's beautiful. It's a really gorgeous house. And I thought, you know, I wanted to find out more about it.
You have a
And when
picture of that one, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Thanks.
which picture?
The
Let me
house?
see.
I don't
Yes. Yep. Right. This house.
know. That's not the house. You know what? I might have not put it in there, which is
That's
is
okay.
my fault.
Maybe
Well,
that's
here-
when I saw
You
saw
know,
it.
it
Here
was
is
on
a
the
picture
other
of a house. Here's a house.
This is where they had the detainment camp. That's at the detainment camp. But anyway,
And
so I
that's-
came across
yeah.
this house, and when I researched it, that's when I learned that it had been built as a hideaway house. And I thought right then, I was like, okay, I need to write a book about this. And then I tied in another story about the German girls whose parents were taken away. But yeah, so the volcano, there was a detainment camp here at Kilauea Military Camp, where all the Japanese on the island were taken here and held for several months before they were shipped to Oahu and the mainland. So this is still part of the park, still part of the national park. It's like a recreational area for military. That's that.
All right. And then how about
And
this?
those
Was
are
I
the
thought this was
Ohello
beautiful.
berries. So you'll see those in the book. They make pies and things out of those. They're native Hawaiian berries. They grow right out of the lava, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
Oh,
So to
They
do
look
my
good.
research, I had to go to the volcano a lot, just, you know, to get the sights and the sounds and the smells. And even though I've been going there since a young girl, it's always good to have it fresh in your mind, you know?
yeah, absolutely. I think
absolutely.
the
And
books
then-
are better when you can do that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. How about this? This is a beautiful.
And then that's
Picture.
looking towards the steam vents. So this is the crater, the larger caldera of Kilauea.
Mhm.
And you see all those steam vents in the distance. So in my book, she talks a little bit about, she's worried about the girls maybe falling into some steam vents when they're out. And they hike down into there. They hike down here in the crater one day. So that's fun. And then this is down at the coast where the lava had just
Wow.
recently flown into the ocean, which is always
That's
amazing to
crazy.
see in real life.
That is amazing. Wow.
I know, I love that, the pattern, like kind of just
Yeah.
loopy, ropey.
That's insane.
So that's my boyfriend and I at the crater. This was before the eruption, I believe, because we had a huge eruption, you may have heard, in 2018, and
Mhm.
everything was closed for a while. So it was fun doing the research for sure. Always a good excuse to run off to the volcano. It's about 2 hours from where I live.
Mhm.
And I found a really amazing because it's a national park, a really great publication that I got a lot of my research from. And I interviewed a few, like a 96-year-old woman who really gave me a good sense of what the volcano was like back in the day.
I always love to see the pictures that go along with the story. Just for me, it's like just putting it all together. And it's so amazing that you can go there and see those things live and in person.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Can I continue, Liz, or did you
Yeah.
have another? It's the same one.
Yeah.
Okay. You said on your website that one Wednesday in 2012, you sat down to write a book and had no idea how. I'd love to hear that story.
Well, I'd always been a school counselor and a teacher, and I always wrote poetry, but I had never written a book or even tried to. And there was a time in my life where I was switching jobs, and I actually finally had a little more time. And I kind of had this idea in my head, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start writing. And I hadn't gone to any writers' conferences yet. I had read Stephen King's book on writing. And I ended up, my friend Mary, who's here, I think, she would always come out and visit me, and she would read the little bits and pieces, and she was kind of like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I did finish that finally, and it was probably pretty horrible. But it was, it was like that first book, you finally finish it, and you realize, wow, I actually wrote a book. And so that was, and then like time and time again, I went to writers' conferences, I edited it, I hired an editor, and then I didn't get an agent. I wrote 2 more books, did not get an agent with those. And then it was this 4th one that got me the agent after I hired a really wonderful editor. So it was a long road to get there.
I think that helps for sure. We did the same thing. We had 2 books that we wrote that didn't get an agent. And then it was the 3rd one that that finally did, but we had an outside editor help us. And I think that's there's just to have we're so, you're so close to it, and just to have a professional come in from the outside, I think is definitely the way to go.
It definitely made all the difference. Yeah, you can't see it. You're too close.
Right. How long was that road for you from that first book? You said 2012 until when was your first book?
So it was
published?
About 6-year period, I think, 5 or 6 years, maybe 5.5 till I got the agent, and then another 5 months till we got the book deal, which was very exciting, as you know how it is.
Yeah.
It's
the best part.
That's always very exciting. You said also that you blame Hawaii for your addiction to writing. And I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that.
Well, I always love a book I love the settings in books. So I love to be transported to other places when I'm reading. And so with Hawaii, I feel like I've spent so much time here, obviously, most of my life, and just being outdoors, being in the ocean, the mountains. And I feel like there's so many interesting stories to write about that people don't know about, that aren't at the resort kind of thing. Just the history, the World War II stuff, but there's also a lot of really other fascinating parts to Hawaii, stories that people would have no idea about. But it's fun to write about, I think, because it's so multicultural. It's so beautiful. And it's a fun place to write about. And I love setting, so it's the perfect setting for me.
I mean, Hawaii, you can't really get a much better setting, I don't think.
It's pretty cool. But, I do want one day, I love Vancouver Island, British Columbia.
Oh, yes.
I've only been there once, but I could imagine wanting to write a book someday there. That would require me to have to go there more.
Right.
Yeah. Smart. You're like us. You got to put your book somewhere great, and then you have to visit multiple times. Yeah, girl, you're with us. That's what we do too.
You guys are smart.
Okay, so let's get back to these questions. There's a question: who are some of your favorite authors, and what are some of your favorite books?
Well, I think one of my favorite authors that really inspired me to become an author was The Prodigal Summer by Barbara Kingsolver. I loved The Secret Life of Bees. I love Alice Hoffman's. I love magical realism. So in this 3rd book of mine, there's just a really thin thread of magical realism to it. I think partly just because the volcano lends itself to that. So I did a little bit of that. So those are my 3. And then of course I loved Where the Crawdads Sing. I think I'm not alone there, obviously. No. And somebody recently asked me what my favorite historical fiction books are. I think maybe The Book Thief. I love that book. I'm in awe of the writing, the creativity. Recently I read a book called Garden Spells that I love. It's also it's kind of a lighthearted magical realism. I tend to chime in.
I loved Garden Spells.
Yes, was it?
Chime in on that.
Julie comes out. When you bring Julie out, that's a good thing.
That is such a great book.
It's just so such a feel-good, amazing.
What was it called again?
Garden Spells.
It's called Garden Spells. I'll put it in the.
Definitely.
I think I want it.
For any book that has Julie popping out of her square, I gotta check that one out.
It's a
It's
fun
so good.
book.
And you're right about Alice Hoffman. I mean, nobody does magical realism better than her.
No.
She's got a new one coming in October too. So we've
Oh
got
my
something to look forward to.
Oh,
It's the-
Mary Lee's chiming in. She loved it too. Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
even
Garden
heard
Spell
of
is
it. What's
really
I
I
haven't
good.
hadn't
either.
I hadn't either. My friend at school, an English teacher, just handed it to me one day and I couldn't put it down.
It just, I mean, I'm getting the feels. It's just one of those books that gives you all the feels.
Oh, okay.
You know,
You
it's
need to
just,
put a link in
Okay.
there, girl. We need to.
I'll
we
link
need
it.
this book in our life.
Perfect pandemic
Okay.
reading.
Yeah.
So
Good to know.
I've got
Sorry.
two. No, good. I love when you chime in. We've got 2 more questions in the chat. One is, what is your next project?
So I just finished this draft and it's called Radar Girls. And it's about another World War II, Hawaii. It's about the Women's Air Raid Defense, which was established right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And these women were plotters. So they worked it was like a top secret thing. Nobody even really knew about it. So they were kind of having to vector all the pilots that were coming and going and defending the Hawaiian airspace. And it's a really, really cool story. When I read this book, the nonfiction about it, it's a really, really amazing story. So it's been fun to write. A lot of research, but really fun to write. So that comes out next July.
It sounds good, and I love the title. Is that title gonna stay?
Well, my editor came up with the title. Like, I had just sent her an article and I'm like, what about this? Would this be a good topic for a book? And then she's like, I love it. She's all, and we could call it Radar Girls. And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
So great.
That's good. If she's
Yeah,
in.
well, the editor came
Yeah.
up with it, so it did
Exactly.
definitely stay.
It's good though. It's really good.
And you know, it was the radar it helped us win the war, and we were just perfecting it, and so it was a new thing back then. So it's pretty fascinating.
We've got some really interesting questions rolling in. Sharon's asking, if we asked your high school English teachers, would they be surprised you're an author?
That is a good question. You know, it was really sad. I had a wonderful creative writing teacher in my senior year who we would just pretty much write whatever we wanted in a notebook all day, and that was it. It was completely unstructured, just kind of free association, write whatever you want. And I was excited to tell her, like, give her a book, and she passed away like a week before my book got published.
No.
I was so sad. I know. You know, they might be a little bit surprised. Yep. I was a little more into talking and having fun in my English class.
Well,
than
aren't we all?
writing
Aren't we
thesis
all,
statements.
We had Britt Bennett on the night before her pub date, and she grew up down here, and we had like several of her. She went to one of the local high schools, actually a rival high school where we went, and her English teachers were here, and they got on and took them off mute, and it was really. They did not seem surprised about her at all. They were. It was a pretty special moment. We've got another cool question here. When you write historical fiction, Susan's asking, when you write historical fiction, are you trying to teach some history in your book, or is it only for the purpose of setting, time, and place?
There's definitely a lot of history involved. I feel like especially in my second book, The Lieutenant's Nurse, and my fourth book, Radar Girls, it's a lot of Pearl Harbor information, I think. And I want people to learn about this. And with Pearl Harbor, or with The Lieutenant's Nurse, I had these little snippets in between each chapter that kind of were leading up to Pearl Harbor. And it was a lot of information that, you know, there's always that question of, did we know about it? You know, did we know about the Japanese attack that was coming, and could we have prevented it? And so I didn't say one way or another, but I filled the little in between chapters with just information that I think stuff that I had never learned in school. And I think probably a lot of people hadn't. So yeah, a little bit of both, I think.
That's interesting. Well, that's all I have over here, Lisa. Back to you.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask, there's a cool story about the audiobook recording for Red Sky Over Hawaii, if you can tell that.
Yeah, well, so when my first book came out, it just, as a new author, you really have no idea what's it's like to be published. You have no idea how many things there are to think about. And there's a lot of long Hawaiian words in my books, or just Hawaiian words in general. So the first audiobook, I gave no guidance on how to pronounce anything. And then the next book, I recorded the Hawaiian words in a voice memo and sent it to them. But then this third book, they gave me the option to have a woman from Hawaii read it, narrate it. And so that was really exciting to me, because at the volcano, there's a lot of long Hawaiian words. The crater is Hale Mau Mau or Hale Mau Mau, depending. The crater on Mauna Kea is Moku a Veo Veo. And if you're from the mainland and don't know these words and you look at them, you probably just have no idea what to say.
I would be a disaster. I can't even pronounce like normal words. Everyone that comes here every week knows this. So
yeah, so that was exciting. I didn't know it was an option to get someone from Hawaii.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I just love that, because of course there's some people that only, read audiobooks. So you definitely, they're important. And I think gaining in popularity. So to have the right person doing it is key.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a degree in Chinese medicine, and I read sort of an interesting article about this. I just want to ask you, how does Chinese medicine and acupuncture, which you're very well versed in, affect your writing?
Well, when I was in school, acupuncture school, I was writing my books, most of them, my earlier ones. And I felt like it was really helpful to me because acupuncture is really good at just kind of calming you. It can be very relaxing on your nervous system. And writing a book sometimes can be stressful. And so I felt like that was just a really good antidote for, having spent all day, especially editing, at the desk, editing and stuff. So, in that respect, I feel like it can be really helpful. And then one thing that's not really related to my writing, maybe per se, but the Chinese have this beautiful way with language and these great descriptive words, like their herbal formulas are like free and easy wonder or magical decoction or sublime formula. They've got these, or running piglet syndrome. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but they've got a really great way with language, I think, that I appreciate.
And tell everybody what initially made you interested in acupuncture. I thought this was
well, that was my dog. Too. I had a beautiful dog who was paralyzed, and she got hit by a motorcycle, broke her back, and she was paralyzed. And I took her to acupuncture every week, and it took almost a year, but she was able to walk again, and she lived another 11 years after that. And when I saw that, I just thought, I need to learn how to do this, because it was amazing.
It's an amazing story. When I read that, I was just like, just so amazing. And as animal lovers, we can definitely relate over here.
Yeah, it was profound.
Oh yeah. Yep.
She was a crazy dog. Everyone thought she was crazy, but I just loved her so much.
Oh,
yeah.
We all love our crazy dog.
Right?
Lisa and I each have a crazy dog, and they actually have the same name, which is weird.
No way.
When we adopted them, they both were named Lily when we adopted them as rescue, and they're both really given us a lot of grief, but we love them. I can hear my Lily barking in the bedroom that she's trapped in right now.
My two are laying on the floor. It's nap time over here, so the craziness is not obvious, but they might wake up and get crazy.
Sharon has a question. There is a reference to the leper colonies in Red Sky over Hawaii. Do you think there was enough information available to write an entire book about that part of history? Would you even consider it? You guys have really good questions tonight. I just want to
and she's clearly read the book too.
Right? Yeah, well, thank you. That is a good question. I think Molokai, the book by Alan Brenner, is pretty much focused on that. I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't read it. I think Another thing about growing up here is sometimes you hear so much about something your whole life that maybe you want to read about something elsewhere. And so I didn't read Molokai, even though it seems to be a lot of people's favorite book. I'm not sure about the leper colony. It's a possibility, definitely, but it hasn't really been on my radar yet.
Maybe somewhere down the
Maybe
line.
someday.
Yeah. Well, that's it over here. Can you tell us where to find you on social media? Because it sounds like you post a lot about your research.
Yeah.
You know, and we know because we follow you. I mean, really interesting to follow. So tell everyone
Yeah.
where they can find you.
So I like Instagram, and I am Sarah Ackerman Books at Instagram, and on Facebook I'm Ackerman Books, and Twitter Ackerman Books. I'm not on Twitter that much, but Instagram definitely. I think that's the best place to follow me, and then my website is also Ackerman Books.
Fantastic. And remember, you guys, you can find Lisa and I at on Instagram at Lisa and Liz, and Facebook Liz Fenton and Lisa Steinke, where we keep the schedule updated. LizandLisa.com, and you can go to our events page, and we have all the Zoom links for this. So Sarah, it's been such a pleasure to have you. I could listen to you talk all day. I love when we have historical fiction authors on. It's just absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
And Julie, I'm gonna pass it to you. You there, Julie?
Oh, sorry, Sam. My signal's really bad today. I'm
Okay.
lagging, so sorry about that. Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, anyways, I will reiterate what Liz said, Sarah. It was so great having you. And this book, it's going to be right up our ladies' alley. I can see this on our bestseller table for sure, getting lots of love there. So
Awesome.
great topic. Again, Liz and Lisa, if you ladies want to join us with their event on July 15th, I put the link in for that. And next week, we're actually on a Wednesday next week. So a little bit different from our Tuesday, Thursday routine. So just letting everybody know to tune in on Wednesday for Leah Conan.
She's a debut too, you guys. So definitely, if you guys could come
give her
out
some
and
love.
support her. Yeah, it's so hard right now for debut authors. And she's actually with our same agent. So we want to support her. And she's written an amazing book, but she's a debut. So if you guys could come out and support her, we would be very, very grateful. And I think she's really excited and you know, nervous about the event, of course.
So cool.
Sarah, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it very much.
Hold your book up one more time.
Very fun.
Yeah,
Red Sky over Hawaii.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
All right, guys, go pick it up from Warwick's, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye.